I suppose just to start by saying I think there are as many different types of directors as there are different types of people.
The extraordinary thing about the history of theatre, if you look at it, in the very earliest days of theatre, there was no such thing as a director, as far as I understand it.
A friend of mine was saying, what's the difference between a producer and a director? In my world, I think a director's job is there as a facilitator.
You know, with the ancient Greeks, I think the writer was usually in charge and quite often decided that they would play the best part. You know, in Shakespeare's time, from what I gather, the stage manager took a lot of the director's decisions in some respects, and the actors were directing themselves. And then you had the great actor managers, you know, Garrick and Irving, who it was all about star performances. And it wasn't really until, I'm not quite sure, but certainly the early 20th century, where the idea of the director as a defined, almost professional role began to take shape. And I suppose the way most people understand that now is that the primary role of the director is to work closely primarily with the actors, but also with other members of the creative team, to realise the full potential of the script or the story that they're working with. Yeah. So the director becomes, in effect, the ultimately responsible person in terms of the quality of the show that emerges at the end of the process.
I don't think it's my job to tell people what to do. It's not about that. I mean, I love telling people what to do, don't get me wrong. But you're there to facilitate. You're the one that you've got, I hate using the word vision, but for want of a better word, you've got this artistic vision of how, you know, this play that you're lifting off the pages and you're bringing to life.
I can't really claim to be a director, yeah. I have directed a lot of plays, but I don't have any qualifications in that role or anything like that. It's, to me, the business of directing has been a culmination of involvement in various aspects of theatre making over quite a few years. Depending on what kind of context you're working in, the director can have so many other things to think about, all the bits and pieces that make up the show. You know, that's part of the director's responsibility very often, you know. So I think people don't appreciate that how much of a factory art theatre is. Yeah, how many different people are involved in making it work, and the director has to be aware of all of that, I think. And I think a lot of people outside don't quite get that, yeah. In fact, some directors don't get it.
Everyone's way of doing that is kind of unique and tailored to them, to their strengths, to their personality. I think you've got to be passionate and like enthusiastic, massively enthusiastic. You've got to bring love and energy into the room and make everyone in the room feel as excited about this project as you are. You know, just like, how lucky are we all to be here working together on this project? Like, I think that kind of feeling is contagious, and so it's really important to set that tone.
It's not that the director is the boss or the director knows best. It's simply the position that the director is in. The director has a particular standpoint and can see stuff or can see an overview that the actors can't possibly see because they're doing their particular thing. So it's very important for, just as the director respects what the actors are doing, the actors respect that viewpoint, where it's the director's job to look at the whole damn thing and see how all the bits hang together and that it makes some kind of coherent sense.
You have an idea what that looks like, what it is that you want to get across. So that's the basic framework. I think you're there to help guide your actors who are part of the process just as much as the set designer is, the light designer, all these different people who have a very important part to play. You're there to help them, to give them the tools to then create collectively this thing, this vision. And so you're facilitating that, you're making it happen. You're not dictating, you're not necessarily imposing your views on them. What you do owe to them as a director is, first of all, being very clear on what it is that your so-called vision is, what it is that you're trying to get out of this project. Also, being creating a safe space for them to be able to explore. So I'm not into, right, first rehearsal, we're going to start blocking or doing this. It's not about that. You are here, you are exploring possibilities, because this is exactly what this is. There is no right or wrong.
Theatre was always my passion, but I was urged, when I kind of left school, went to university, I was urged by parents and teachers to do a more sensible degree. So I did psychology, and I'd love to do theatre, I'd love to act, I'd love to do theatre, but I just can't risk that sort of uncertainty in my life. So I pursued a kind of more conventional path, and I trained in psychotherapy, and I worked initially with adults, and then I retrained to work with children as a play therapist, and a child mental health specialist, which I did right up until my mid-30s. And then I had a career change, really, which coincided with parenthood. So I had a child, and I really kind of seized that opportunity to redirect myself.
In the flats that I grew up in, there was a social club, and you put in a bit of money each week, and at the end of the year, one of the things that happened was that around Christmas time, you went to the London Palladium to see a pantomime. And I remember seeing, these names may not mean that much to people these days, but I remember seeing Tommy Steele as Buttons in Cinderella, and Norman Wisdom as playing Aladdin. Yeah. And this had a very big effect on me. It was incredibly exciting for me at the time, and I just loved these events, and it stayed with me. The other thing was I took to Shakespeare incredibly early for some reason. I think that was partly that my mum, who was not particularly well educated, I think she left school, she was 14, I think, but she loved poetry. Yeah, so I got a very early love of poetry. So when I went to school and we started getting encouraged far too early, really, to read Shakespeare, I kind of took to it. I loved the feel of it, the sound of it, yeah. And also we had an English teacher who had a big influence on me, because instead of just reading the stuff, he got everybody to act it out. And that's when it began to kind of make more sense. You know, it wasn't some literature as a static thing. It was something you played with, you know. And so I kind of fell in love with theatre through that process. And remember, the very first time I did anything theatrical that I can really remember was in King Lear, when I think I was 13. And I played various gentlemen, but also played the Storm, yeah, winding a canvas sheet like this, yeah, and shaking a big metal sheet to read the thunder in the storm, you know. So that's how I got the bug.
I never, even in my wildest dreams, thought I'd be interested in being a director. It all started off, you know, I've been doing acting for some time, and I love acting, I love plays, and I really very much enjoy theatre. And I found that a lot of the plays I was in, I was getting parts for people who didn't look like me. So, which is great, you know, I got to play wonderful parts like Beatrice in Much Ado About Nothing, which is absolutely wonderful. And I was just thinking, wouldn't it be amazing to play a part that actually was written for someone that had my physical characteristics? So I got this part in a play, Clybourne Park, which was amazing, and it's a great play. And what I really loved about that experience was that I didn't need to spend any time justifying whether the director was right to use colourblind casting, but, you know, we could just focus on whether my performance was credible or not. And because the part I played was a part of a black woman. I mean, I've played parts written for white men. So I've played, exactly. And in Inspector Calls, I played the inspector in a production. So, you know, things like that. Actually, I tell a lie. When I was at school, I did play Balthasar, one of the three wise men, who was black. So, but a black man. So I did play one of the three wise kings. So you can say that when I was about 12 when I did that. So I have played a character that looks like me, I guess. But no, you're absolutely right. You know, I've played Shakespeare, I've done all sorts of different plays and wonderful plays. but they didn't have any roles of people who looked like me in those plays. So we got beyond all the, oh, well, that was an interesting casting decision, all of that. And so it got me thinking that why can't we get to see more plays with black women and people who look like me? Why are all the good parts that I'm seeing mainly for white men, and why can't I see myself in any of the plays that I'm going to see? And that's been very much the journey that, I'll look at something and I'll think, oh, it'd be great if we could do that or consider that. And then you think, well, no one's doing it. So you need to go out and be the, first adopter, if you like, and go out and do it. And I think with anything in life, before I used to think, you have to have a natural inclination for it, or a natural talent for it. But with anything, I think you can acquire any skill with that right mindset if you're thinking that, you're open to learning. And so I got my first play to direct, and I had to spend time researching. I went on directors' courses. I really went into learning the craft of directing, and it opened up a whole new world for me and changed it. I mean, it was such a game changer. And just the things that you learn and the skills that you harness is just pretty incredible, and I haven't looked back since.
I sort of transitioned through theatre and education, so I that was kind of the overlap. So still working with children, but using theatre and drama as a kind of language for for inspiring them and giving them sort of tools to use to access learning. I've always acted as well, but I think I'd say in the last 10 years I have I've focused almost exclusively on directing. I do the odd bit of acting, but I think for me directing is a much more complete meal. It's like acting is just one strand of it, but for me, just the satisfaction I get from that feeling of ownership over the entire project is so rewarding. Just seeing it go from nothing to something that I'm really proud of.
I love music. I like dancing as well, and I think these are both really, really important elements in theatre directing. I also like, I like paintings, I like drawings, all of those things, and I think again that informs the way that you direct your craft, because you've got a visual idea as well, the way you want things to look. So when you think about lighting a scene in theatre, what the palette would be, so what kind of colours, the moods that you want to evoke. So I think having an interest in that, it does help. It drives the kind of things that you focus on when you're directing a play. I think movement is, it's absolutely key. We all know that. And music, again, what do things sound like? How much do you want to, the sound effects that you want to use, where you want to use music. I love, for me, my plays, music does play a big part. Even from before the play has started, I want the audience to get them in the mood. So we'll have pre-show music, the interval, the same thing, and then post-show when they're leaving, because the whole thing is an experience. You're selling a whole experience. It's all their senses that you want to be engaged. So I think all these things come into it very much.
One of the things that in my development in terms of my relationship with theatre was that I did it for a while until I had to work shifts as a news journalist, and then so I stopped doing it for a while. So I returned to my love of music in particular. Actually, there's one art form that shaped me as a person. It's been music. I just used to be obsessed with it. And when I stopped doing theatre, because I couldn't do the rehearsal schedules, I did a lot of writing about music, and I still have a strong love of music of all sorts, but mainly kind of American music, rock and roll, that sort of thing. So that's still really a great love. And literature, actually, I still love poetry and stuff. Yeah, I love painting as well, actually. I discovered painting when I was a teenager. going to the Courtauld Gallery. So that's always been an important thing, because in theatre, it's very easy to miss. If you're like me, like very a bit, literary in some respects, it's very important to kind of keep in touch with the sort of visual shape of the thing. Yeah, so I have to kind of work at that. But the fact that I'm really interested in painting helps a bit with that, I think. Because the other thing I did was when I was stopped doing theatre for a while, I loved the cinema. Yeah, and in fact did a postgraduate course in film studies because I wasn't doing theatre anymore. So I got really into studying film, and that was fascinating. And that had a big influence on me in terms of my approach to theatre when I got back into doing theatre later on. Well, I suppose what it made me think about was what are the things in cinema that have really touched me and moved me and made me think about the world differently. Yeah, so that's one of the things. Yeah, that theatre can have that effect. But then also, it made me think about the differences between the way cinema works and the way theatre works. And it made, in a way, moving. When I got back into theatre, I fell in love with the nature of theatre as a medium. Yeah, it seemed to me that just the very fact that theatre is about people in action in a real place. The real people are there doing the thing, and there are real people watching it, and they're interacting. And that is, it's something very special about that kind of event. Yeah.
I do have a very eclectic taste in music, which ranges from, I'm an avid opera fan, so I go to the opera a lot. I'm one of these people, I'm very fanatical in the sense that I don't like musicals, apart from the musicals I grew up with. So when I was younger, when you were a child, Sound of Music, all that sort of thing. But as an adult, I don't enjoy musicals. For me, it's either opera or theatre, and there's no in between. And I think it's because of the whole conceit of musicals, that people talking and then, I'll say to you, oh, I love you, and then you'll answer me with a song. It just doesn't work for me. Whereas opera for me, which is at the other end of the scale, there is just, opera is just, again, going back to that experience. It's heightening all your senses. It's visually stunning, and what you're hearing is stunning, and the emotion, the feeling, all of that. So that's why I'm big on opera. In terms of other types of music, I like hip hop and rap a lot. I think that has, especially with rap, the poetic side of it. It's some people are telling a story, they're talking about their experience. It's a very specific narrative. I love jazz music as well, and I think that has a great part to play, especially in theatre as well, to create mood. And again, it comes with this feeling, this experience, because when you think about the way jazz music was created, very much like hip-hop, from the African-American experience, what they were going through, telling their narratives. So I think that's really important. R&B music I like. I'm not a big fan of rock music, but those are my bents.
Because I think one of the dangers with music is it's so powerful. For me, it's such a powerful means of expression that you cannot just decide to slap music on the top of a production, right? And just as if it's just to kind of stir up the emotions. It's kind of lazy in a way, and it's distracting. It's just too much going on quite often. You have to be very careful about the way you use music in theatre, I think. As for the kind of music I like, I suppose I would say that if any art form has shaped the way I am, it's been music, and it's been primarily rock and roll, or Black American music. Basically, that's what's really got to me. I suppose there's a lot of people of my generation for whom there was an incredible revelation when they first heard this stuff. It was like nothing you'd ever heard before. It was like an explosion in your soul, and you completely addicted. So you kind of. I remember John Lennon's song, feel so suicidal, even hate my rock and roll, It was like what you lived for. It seemed somehow to kind of give you such a strong sense of who you are, who you were, And so that's been a strong current, especially in my, when I was younger. It really shaped who I was, and I was obsessed with it, basically, obsessed. I can still tell you all the details of every bloody R&B record that was in the charts in 1962. It's ridiculous. Yeah, so that music, more than anything else, has really shaped me in lots of ways. It's always been very important to me. Yeah.
I hate auditions. I think auditions they're horrible. There's no two ways about it. They are. They are.
Auditioning is a terrifying business. I think one of the things, if you've been an actor, one of the things that you learn, I think, as a director, or I've felt anyway, is that you try to empathise with the actor and understand the pressure they're under, what they're worried about, and so on, and make sure that they're able to give their best.
I like group auditions. I like because rehearsals is a group process, so I like seeing how people are in a room around other actors, how they deal with the pressure of that. Everyone's nervous. I think it's quite a good... So I suppose what I'm saying is that the audition, I'm not just looking at, what is this actor's craft like, but I'm also looking at how does this person deal with a stressful situation? And is this someone I think I can work with? Because it's really important. You get very intimate, and you want to be around people that you chime with and that you feel, you will take direction. I mean, that's absolutely what I want to see in an audition, is that someone takes direction. That's the key thing, really. I'm not expecting, to be wowed by some definitive performance. I'm more interested in seeing whether this person listens, whether they take on board some feedback, do different.
One of the worst experiences, I think, for a director can be when somebody comes in and auditions, and you think, oh, that's quite impressive. And then after a few rehearsals, you find that nothing has changed. They haven't really moved on, and that the performance that you get when the show goes up is almost the same as what you got on the audition, and they haven't really interacted with the team. And that can be, very early on, one of the first plays I did, I found that difficulty came through very strongly. So the result was that like one person in the cast in particular seemed to be in a different play from everybody else. So that can be a difficulty.
With auditions, I do have a very specific process for that. I like to see actors individually. Depending on the play, let's say I am trying to audition for an ensemble, then that's fine. I can see them all together. But if you're just auditioning for a part, the first audition, I just want to see that actor and focus on that actor, and I'll get someone else to read in the other parts.
I want to see how they respond to throwing out ideas about, maybe you could play it like this rather than that, and see how they react to that, and see how they use their creativity to explore different possibilities in the script. Yeah, so that's the key things I'm looking for, really. And it's really important to remember that in a way, the actor is auditioning you as the director. They want to know whether they can work with you. You may offer them a part and they say, well, no, I don't like the way you're approaching this at all. So you've got to bear in mind they're interrogating you to some extent. So you've got to be clear about how you want to work and what your priorities are, I think.
I have a kind of faith that things always work out for a reason when I'm casting, because that's always seemed to be what happens. So when I've had actors pull out, I always think, don't worry, that's happened for a reason. A better person's about to come along, and they always do. So I think I've done it enough times to not be thrown by things like that. And I don't rush to cast. I sort of take my time. I always allow time, like I say, wiggle room, time, because it can be sometimes a bit of a sort of unfolding process that you just sort of, I enjoy it. I do find it really hard turning away people who I like and who are really good. You know, I do, that's actually probably the thing I enjoy least in the whole business, actually. Because I know as an actor how devastating it is when you really want a part and you don't get it. It's devastating. It's like, you know, it's like being turned down by a lover. It's devastating. So, yeah. I try and always put myself in their shoes and think, what would I need to hear to make it slightly less devastating?
First of all, I don't think we ever know the author's intentions, and I think one thing that's really important is that a lot of writers, the great writers, I'm sure, write better plays than they've realised. And one of the things that you do as an actor or as a director is you find things in the play that little undercurrents and things that you can really work on and bring out and make shine, you know.
I feel a good play, a good text, there's enough there for numerous interpretations and numerous different, you know, sort of visions of, well, what am I gonna, what story am I going to tell with this text? I think if it's well written, that's the deal. So I don't feel like I have to second guess what is their story. It's, you know, that's my job as director, is to have a story that I am, you know, finding in this text.
I think people talk about interpreting text all the time in theatre. For me, that's not what theatre is about. My role as a director is not to interpret the text. I mean, I'm not saying that exercise is not important, but I could join a creative writing class to do that and, you know, set up a group to sit there and we can talk all day about the text, the symbolism, and why the playwright has chosen this and what it is that the playwright is trying to get across. And it's a very important discussion, but that's not my job here. My job here is to lift those words off the page and bring them to life, to turn that into live action.
I mean, I learned about directing really through working with particular directors who I thought were doing a brilliant job. They made me a better actor, yeah, made me understand what the possibilities were of a role, yeah. And I thought, if I ever direct, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to help the actor realise the possibilities of a role, you know. So in that sense, I mean, there's certainly a continuity between the acting and the director. Whether it makes you better as a director, I don't know. You'd have to ask the other actors and the audience. There was one director I worked with, Roger, who had a huge influence on me, yeah, when I was an actor, because he made me understand more than anything else that the harder you work on understanding the play, the more you pay attention to the detail and the possibilities of the text, the better performance you're going to put in. Yeah, so that's something I never forgot. But also he was very strong on making sure you really examine the text closely and understood how it worked. And also I think the value of doing various kinds of research, you know, understanding the cultural references in a play, yeah, and seeing what you can make of them and how you can bring out why they're there, yeah.
I think it's really useful, actually, as a director, to act and to have acted, because it is such a reminder of how vulnerable and sensitive actors can feel if they feel like they're being sort of told how to do it rather than have suggestions and provocations and invitations about how to do it. You know, it's so important for the actor to find their character and find their motivations themselves.
I think one of the things, if you've done some acting, you never forget, or I don't, when you're a director, that the conflicting feelings you have about performing, that you want to do it, there's a drive to do it, but at the same time, when you're about to go on for the first night, you're thinking, why the hell am I doing this? This is insane.
I have to say, I love directing, and what I love, it's interesting because for directors, for me personally, I don't know how you feel about this, but for me, the bit that we love is the rehearsal bit, where it's just exploring the art of the possible, and you're giving that room to just try different things, experiment. And I know as an actor, it's a different thing. You just can't wait till the performance, till you're on stage and you're going for it, and it's now your show. You don't have to listen to the director. But for us, it's that bit, that world that you're creating.
The actor sort of very much is of one view, and I'm, as the director, of another view about what's going on in this scene. Let's try both. Let's try your kind of angle. Let's now try something completely different. And what have we learned? And sometimes it's neither's right, neither feels right, and it's something in the middle, and that's great. Just arrive at it together, journey together.
In this scene, you're gonna walk on stage, and you're gonna go across this, and go through this tunnel, and then you'll come here. And I said, okay, that's great, but why? Oh, just because that, just do it. And I'm not arguing that I should or shouldn't do it, but what does the tunnel represent? Where am I? Can you just tell me where I am? Am I outside? Am I going shopping? What is it? I just need to know that to understand why I'm going through a tunnel. I'm not saying I'm not going to go through it, but I need to know why. And I felt that that director had a very clear idea of what something should look like, and thought it would be lovely to have this thing here and have the actors come out. And I'm sure it did look lovely, but I needed to have a reason for why that, what does this have to do with the story? I mean, even when you're dealing with something that's abstract, even within that, there has to be a narrative that's being told. And, whatever it is, whether it could be, oh, well, the tunnel is, you're kind of clawing your way to freedom through this, and whatever it is, give me an explanation, as opposed to, oh, it will just look nice if you come out of there. There has to be a reason. And those are the experiences that frustrate me, where directors haven't thought about things like that. And I'm happy to go off on my own and think about it. But what if I come up with something that isn't in sync with what this director had, the vision? I can come up with ideas and say, well, I think this tunnel represents X, Y, Z, and I think I'm on a shopping trip with the girls, and we're going through this tunnel to get to the supermarket, or whatever it is, I don't know. And the director may have something completely different in mind, but you need to talk about it. So for me, that's frustrating. Directors that don't spend time on that, they just spend time on the how they want you to deliver things. I want to spend time on understanding, what my character wants and what she's doing. And as I say, I can come up with my own theories, but what if my theories are completely out of sync with the overall, and that, so I'm in a different place to everyone else. So there has to be some unity. So let's all talk about it collectively. So I don't like those experiences where we don't go into things like that. And there are a lot of directors that don't necessarily do any of these things. It's just like, right, let's do some blocking. You stand over there, you do that, you deliver that line in that way. Doesn't work for me.
When there are differences of view about how you should be doing it, say an actor comes along and says, well, I think my character is like this. Or I say, yeah, and what's the evidence you have that informs that view of your character? And in a sense, the text becomes the referee. Say, let's look at the text, yeah? And the text will guide us in terms of what is going to work best in terms of the totality of the play, yeah?
I genuinely believe that you can get a performance out of anyone. People say, oh, I can't act, I can't. I don't believe that. I think, again, with the right techniques, and if you use language that people can understand and you create a safe space, I really, truly believe you can get a good performance out of anyone. I think there are some people, with anything in life who maybe have a natural affinity for things. Don't get me wrong. But I think talent is only a small percentage of all these things. I think most of it, 90% of it, is hard work. If you go through the text, I mean, texts are beautiful. There are just so many opportunities for that. You break down the text into little units. For me, that is just a manageable way of approaching text, because, you know, human beings, we're never static. We want different things all the time. Our desires are forever changing, again, based on whether we're getting or not getting what we want. Which is why I don't think, you know, when someone says, oh, that character is just this, yes, that character might be arrogant, but not all the time. It depends on who they're engaging with. Maybe with their child, they're not arrogant. Maybe with their mother, they're completely different. Maybe in that situation, they were arrogant. In other situations, they're extremely humble. Who knows? But the point is, we are very complex as human beings, and our desires change all the time, and the way we behave changes all the time as well.
The more closely you look at the text in terms of what facts we know about the character, what the character says about other people in the play, what other people in the play say about that character, that's where you can draw out the real essence of the thing, I think, get to the heart of the thing.
I'm very much of, first of all, let's look at the world of the play. What are the circumstances? When this play was written, first of all, when was it written? And when is it set? And what was going on, first of all, around the time that the playwright wrote the play, because some of that will inform the writing. So even though, let's say, a play is written in 2019, it could be set in 1919, for instance. But the fact that it was written in 2019, there'll be modern views that are informing the way it's written. So first of all, let's look at the world of the play, when it's set, what was going on in that period, and then what was going on in the period when the playwright wrote this play. So that's where the playwright's vision does come into it. I don't completely ignore it. And for me, the play is the Bible in terms of when you're trying to build out the world of the play, looking at facts about the play. Where was it set? Where are we? Who are the characters? How are they related to each other? And then the next thing I do is I say to the actors, have a look at your character, go through the play and pick out everything that your character says about herself, and everything that other people say about your character, and what you say about other characters.
So what we know, what we can presume or assume, and then what we invent in terms of backstory. And I really encourage actors to do that. They don't have to share all of that with us, and sometimes it's useful not to share it, but to have, to encourage them to do that. And some of the actors I work with quite regularly and really enjoy working with, that's what they love doing. They have very detailed, elaborate backstories. So ask them to go through the text with a fine-tooth comb to establish everything they know factually, and then what can they glean and presume from stuff that's intimated in stage directions or other things other characters say.
It's not for you to judge your character, that's the audience's job. You are meant to go through everything and look at this point, my character wants this and is doing this to get that, but this person has come in and created an obstacle and preventing, so now the character's trying that. And with that, as I say, comes very natural responses. And that is your job as an actor. Focus on what your character wants and what he or she is doing to get what they want. And the rest will come naturally. The emotions will flow and you will feel all these things that you're saying. And that way, I think you get a very natural response from actors.
If you're playing a character that, objectively is kind of perhaps quite unlikable, not to pass judgment on the character, but to really make sense of the character from their own point of view. Like, I feel the world doesn't understand me, or something like that, rather than, I treat people like shit.
And it's also, they're all the questions that you need to ask. I call them the Kipling questions, the who, what, where. So who is your character? What do we know about your character? When I ask actors that, they start saying to me, I'll say, what do we know about your character? Oh yeah, well, yeah, she's a bit bossy, isn't she? No, that's not what I asked. Just basic things. Again, it's not deep. First of all, is she married? How old is she? What does she like to eat? Basic things to build a biography. And the stage directions give you so many indications of that. So go through the play and sift those out. So you can call those facts. Anything that's a stage direction is a fact. If it says, oh, that character's very tall or very whatever, that's a fact. So say, my character's very tall. There you go. What do other characters say about your character? Again, this helps you build that biography and turn that words on a page into a human being that has a backstory. And I tell my actors, be as inventive as you want, but as long as there's a nexus to the play. So if you decide that your character is into space travel, there has to be something that you've lifted from the text to justify that. It can't just be from anywhere. Otherwise, we're all working on different plays, aren't we? Different narratives. We all have to agree collectively in the world of the play that, for instance, first of all, the window is over there, the unseen window is over there. As long as we all agree that it's there and we're all consistent, the audience will believe it.
In a scene, you might have a scene between A and B. A wants something from B, B wants something from A. The event is when their wants shift. When something happens, maybe someone else comes into the room that changes their wants. Because maybe C coming into the room makes A think, oh, I don't want to seem too pushy in front of C. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to do something different. And then B responds differently to A. So an event is any trigger, anything that's said or happens in the unfolding action that changes what the characters are wanting from the situation and from each other.
So an entrance or an exit is an event. So we go through the text and we mark up all these different things, the shifts, and you know, if you want to be very technical about it, an event has to change something for everyone that you can see on scene. A shift is just something that maybe changes for that character individually and everyone else is still on track with their original desires.
It's just really useful to identify those, because that's when you just get a change of tone, a change of colour. That's what makes something watchable. If it's just kind of carrying on one note, you've disengaged instantly.
And I am very much of the Stanislavski school of, acting. I love the Meisner technique. I want to bring out very natural responses in my actors. And so I do spend a lot of time actioning text and, again, trying to get them away from getting into the deep, profound, the meaning of this. No, we're not here to do that. We are trying to turn that into live action. So, for instance, when my actors talk about, well, I think my character's really selfish and my character feels really annoyed. And I say, well, that's not possible. That's an outcome. How can you possibly know? You're doing it the wrong way around. First of all, you need to establish what it is that your character wants. And then the next thing is, what is your character doing to get what she wants? What are the obstacles in the way? And then as a natural reaction, so I think emotions, all of those things, are a natural reaction to us either getting or not getting what we want. So you can't play an emotion. I can't say to you, Mark, get on stage and play angry. As a competent actor, I'm sure you can. You can display, you can do loads of things that you have in your bag of tricks to show an angry person, and I'm sure it will be, credible. But the point is, it's not a natural response, because why are you angry? And depending on why you're angry, that could elicit a whole multitude of things. So let's say the reason your character is behaving in that way is you couldn't get what you wanted. You had a certain desire, and the other character on stage with you was preventing you from getting that. Then that's going to release all sorts of emotions from you, including anger. It could be frustration. And the way that's displayed could either be, you could be crying, you could be shouting, you could maybe not even be doing any of those things and not engaging. So there's a whole host of things to play with. Whereas if I say to you, you're just angry here, then or you might just get on stage and just start shouting, and that's not telling the audience anything. It's just giving you the how, not the why.
It's really important to contextualize every scene, every moment. So, what's happened 10 minutes before? We open with two people in a room having this conversation. What was happening 10 minutes before to get them to that stage? And what was happening the day before to those two people in their separate worlds? So just really getting actors to flesh out the world, because we're just showing the audience this tiny little snapshot of this world. I'll give actors just like the skeletal outline of a scene I want them to improvise. So I'll sort of say, okay, so this was a week before when you didn't yet know X, Y, and Z, and you were in a cafe together having a chat, and this was before whatever the catastrophe happened. So what did your relationship look like then? I'll sort of say, let's start with the line X or something like that, just to get them started. And I think actors just find that really, really useful. I think the more you can flesh out the world of the play, the more the scenes just kind of have that clarity. They just really sort of have much more specificity and clarity, because we know where they're coming from. So as audiences, we're constantly picking up on those subtexts. Like, even though that person is saying this, it seems like they actually are meaning something quite different. And so that's what we're getting at. We're just drawing out their wants. So the actor is playing, the action that the actor's playing is, and it's useful to try and find active verbs for actors. So, I'm seducing you with these words, do you want a cup of tea? Or I'm confronting you, even though I'm saying, do you want a cup of tea? I'm confronting you, or I'm challenging you, or I'm unnerving you, or whatever. So you try, and actions is a technique of just finding specific verbs that work. And some directors do it religiously for the whole, they break down the whole piece into actions. But I just think I dip in and out of it. But I think it can be really useful, certainly when you're trying to unpick shifting subtexts in a scene.
Okay, so this is what some people find a very tedious exercise. It is absolutely, it's a huge exercise. And I personally, my approach is when I'm working on a play, the whole end-to-end period is probably about 6 months, because even before we even get to the auditions and all of that good stuff. And I go through every single line of dialogue and find an action for that line of dialogue. First of all, I look at all the characters, and I set out looking at what their objectives are. So first of all, what is it that they want? What is there? And there are 3 different levels of objectives. You have your super objectives, which is a very nebulous, insular thing. It's, what do you want in life? So a character might want her freedom, and that's something that is not playable, but it's important nonetheless, because it does inform your character's behavior. It's a very, very specific thing to your character. And then the next level of objective is the overriding objective. What is it that you want in the narrative that we see, which is the play? What is it your character is trying to achieve? What are your character's objectives? So then that is something that's playable. It's an external thing. So, for instance, throughout a play, one character might be trying to leave another one and finding the way to get out of an unhappy marriage or whatever it is, and maybe that's what's driving that character throughout that play. So that's an overriding objective. And then there's the immediate objective. Why are you, and I ask all my actors this, why are we seeing you? Why have you come here? Now, when you ask them that, they get very deep. They'll say, oh, well, yes, I've come here because I'm worried about, and I'll say, no, this is not deep. I'm actually a very superficial person, really, literally. Why have you come? Why are you leaving? It could be something as basic as, I want to go to the loo, I'm looking for my pen, I'm looking for my shoes. But there has to be a dramatic reason that brings you on stage. If not, it's not well-written material. And any play that's well-written, there will be some very strong reason why that character has come on. Of course, there are other underlying reasons that, hence the narrative and the play and why we're here. But there has to be something that brings you on that's strong enough, you know, and it's something that's very clear. You've come to see your friends, you've come to do whatever it is. In terms of Meisner, it's using methods to get, again, a very natural response from someone. So for instance, if I pinch you, you're going to have an automatic reaction to that. But if I'd said to you, oh, just do a quick startled jump, that might look very different to me actually pinching you, and I get that natural response. So again, I love using different techniques like that to get the actors to respond to each other. I use a lot of games involving giving them conflicting desires, putting them in a situation, so again, back to the improv, and seeing whether that will elicit certain feelings and emotions which will come naturally. So you think about a line of dialogue. So I'll give you a classic exercise that I love, which is just a very innocuous line. And it could be, and the one I start off with is, I like your shoes, they're a size 8. So there'll be one line of people saying, I like your shoes, the response is, they're a size 8. Each time they say that line, there has to be a different intention behind it. And that opens up all sorts of wonderful possibilities. So again, it gives you options of, instead of focusing on how am I going to say something, why? So if I'm saying to you, would you like a cup of tea? I could be saying that to threaten you, depending on what it is I want from you. I could be saying it to comfort you because I feel that you look ill at ease and I want to make you feel at home, and so on. Loads of possibilities. So that's a really nice technique to open up. So I use that exercise a lot, and I use it, and then with the dialogue, dialogue that they have in the play, just again to give them the idea that depending on what your intention is, that line, the way it comes out, will just be different. But instead of you going in thinking, how am I going to say this line? If you know why, then naturally the way it will come out, won't it?
If you're swallowing the words, you're getting lost in your own emotion, which you're trying to create the show out of your emotion, rather than using the text and the relationships in the play, and engaging with the audience that way, if that makes sense.
I think as a director, the kind of feedback you should give actors would be whether they have been clear. So in a scene, what you need to get from them is it clear what they want? And is it clear what they were doing to get what they want? And are they marking the shifts when what they want has changed? And now what do they want, and what are they doing? That's what the feedback you should be giving. I don't think as a director you should be giving feedback. I didn't really like that delivery. I'm not trying to trivialize, because if someone isn't speaking up and they're not projecting, it is a problem. I'm not suggesting it's not. But that's not the feedback. That there are ways to tackle that problem, the projection. If someone isn't projecting, then make sure you focus some of your rehearsal doing exercises to deal with that, and make sure that the breathing is right. And, instead of saying, oh, project, that's not good direction.
I'm one of those people, I know it's a very common thing to say, but I'm one of those people who sort of says you have one shot, one shout per show, kind of thing. Because I think if people are shouting, all the audience really notices is that people are shouting, and quite often say to actors, look, let the words do more of the work, because you don't have to kind of produce the emotion from nothing. The words will do a lot of that work, Just make sure people can hear the words, and I still think that's an important thing for me, especially in live theatre. It's not like acting on film. You really have to project, make sure you don't let the words fall away at the end of sentences and all that sort of stuff. I think that there's a danger these days. Sometimes I feel that the importance of diction is not fully recognised in stage theatre, live theatre.
Feedback is the F word, feedback. No one, as human beings, we don't like feedback. Our fight or flight instinct kicks in with feedback. We don't like hearing it. And we can go back and reflect later on thinking, actually, that person was trying to help me, even though it's not what I want to hear, but I can use that. Feedback is a gift. People are trying to help you ultimately. And instead of taking it personally that, oh, someone thinks I'm shit. No. They're giving you feedback that you can use to improve. And if you open your mind to It's not about being shit. Maybe you haven't mastered whatever that is, but you will. And you'll get it eventually. Then it doesn't matter. You should welcome feedback. So I think as a director, the way you give feedback to actors is when you give notes, is very important. Actors are very vulnerable. And I think it's helpful that I started off being an actor because I get it. I've been on that side. It is vulnerable because you're opening, you're bringing so much into it, especially where you're drawing from life experiences, emotions, that kind of thing. You do feel exposed. And so I think if you make feedback personal, it's very difficult for people to take. Whereas if you focus on whether they were clear on something or not, that I think let's try and be a bit clearer on that. It wasn't clear to me what your character wanted at that point. Let's really drill in and make that clearer, that focus on giving feedback in that way. So that's very much my approach. And I think that's what a director owes to their actors, to be able to give feedback on the important things, not things like, oh, your diction isn't great or the way you're standing doesn't quite work for you. I think another bit of feedback that I hear directors giving actors is that, just something like, oh, can you try doing this? Try being a bit more like this. Can you play it like this? Terrible direction, absolutely terrible. You're not giving them anything. Again, the focus is you want them, ask them, what does your character, at that moment when you said that, what does your character want? And what were they doing to get what they want? Because right now it's coming across as if you're berating the other person, whereas I think you should be befriending them. So maybe try this. Let's see what that looks like. So that's how I get what I want. And I think if you approach it in that way, you're treating everyone in the same way. You're not focusing on personal things. It's really, the feedback is not personal. You're focusing on behavior that you want change. If someone isn't giving you what you want in terms of how you want them to perform, focus on what they're doing and correct that, as opposed to, I notice you get a bit fidgety when you're on scene. You do a lot with your hands. You do a lot that. Maybe they do that, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to get out of them what you want if you go in giving feedback like that.
Well, yeah, sometimes there can be a difficult relationship and you just have to get on with it, really. There have been directors, one or two directors who are very directive. They very like to just give orders and say, oh, don't do it like that, do it like that. Yeah, I'm in charge, you do what you're told. Which is, it's not very kind of, it doesn't feel very good for the actor in terms of liberating their kind of creative potential, if you like. But it's something, I think if you're an actor, you just have to kind of, once you're committed to a show, you just have to live with that and make the best of it and work with the other actors to make sure that the result in the end is as good as you can help to make it.
And the less they hear from you, the better, because you're opening up. The actors should be talking. And there's another exercise I do. I think, okay, why, if I get to a point, I have to ask myself, why is it only my voice that can be heard? Then that means that I'm going wrong already. Why am I talking? I shouldn't be talking all the time. They should be. In your head the things that you think that you know, but you want to hear from them because they're going to help, and their input is so important. It is absolutely critical into this whole exercise. So you shouldn't be doing all the talking. You want to elicit information from them. You want them to start thinking about things, but you're giving them that, you're not giving them the voice because they have a voice, but you're giving them the platform for their voices to be heard.
It's an obvious thing to say, but I can't even think about doing a decent job as a director until I'm confident that I've got people in place as stage manager, as designers, as even, working on the operating the lights, operating the sound and so on. All of that has to be in place, and all of that contributes to the final product. So it's really important to build up relationships of trust and respect with everybody in the team. Yeah. So as early as possible, you want a production team meeting. Those meetings are absolutely vital. Yeah. And that you get the input from the set designers, the sound designer, the lighting designer, the costume designer, all of those people understanding where you're coming from and giving their own ideas on how the shape of the play can be, created. So it's just, that's what it's about. Theatre is a team. Building theatre, making theatre is a team thing. It really is.
Your relationship with your designers is absolutely critical. I think as a director, you've got to listen to your designers and be open, because I can sit here and have an idea of, I want in Act 2 to have this huge construction here, whatever, and I haven't really thought about the granular, about the light or sound and all these things. I think the critical thing as a director is, first of all, you've got to recruit good people, defer to them, delegate to them. They are the experts. They know what they're doing. Trust your own judgment that you've picked the right people. If you have any doubts or you feel that you need to micromanage and start telling them what to do, then that means you don't trust your own judgment. If you've recruited that person to be on this project, then you trust them and you think that they know what they're doing. So listen to them and let them get on with it. Unless they're saying something that's just so outlandish and has nothing to do with the play you're doing, that's different. But if they are telling you that, well, actually, I don't think that's going to work, you can give it a view, that's fine. You can both have an exchange of views. You'll say this is what you want, and they'll listen and they'll say, well, that's not going to work. Even if it's something that you're really kind of wedded to and you think, well, no, I really, I want to have trumpets at the beginning of Act 2 and I've always wanted that, or whatever it is. And they're saying, I don't see the purpose of that. It might not be what you want to hear, but think about why they're giving you that feedback. And I think, give them the respect that they deserve and listen to them, unless it's something that's just so fundamentally different to what you see in the play. And then that's a discussion to be had. But I think, with people, with those designers, let them get on with it. Now, it really depends on the designers, which again comes back down to make sure that you recruit the right people, recruit properly, and then have trust in your own judgment. Then you'll be fine. I bring on the designers as early as possible. They're right there with you from the get-go before you even have your cast, and have discussions with them, have regular check-ins with them, and tell them right from the get-go, this scene for me is outside. It takes place in Jamaica. This is what the weather is like. So they know, just keep reinforcing things like that. So already the light person is thinking, okay, there. The sound is thinking, what's that going to be like? The set designer is thinking, do you see what I mean? Costume, all of that. Bring them in early. Encourage them to attend your rehearsal so they can hear what's being said. And so if you're coming up with outlandish things, and, we all do, we're all directors, we'll come out with some barking idea that we thought about in the shower or whatever, and think, oh, that's marvelous. And then share it with people and they all think you're nuts, and we all have them. And this is why you have people around you that will think, okay, that's not going to work. But listen to them. It's fine having crazy ideas, that's fine. But when someone's calling you out on it being crazy, don't take it personally, don't get defensive. Take a step back, go around the corner if you need to and think, okay, maybe they have a point, whatever it is. And, because they know what they're doing and they're here to help you. So for me, those relationships are so important.
That can be one of the most difficult areas of being a director, managing people, if you like, or trying to kind of find ways of enabling people to work together harmoniously. I don't think there's any simple answer to it. I think you just have to sort of play it by ear and try and guide people to what it is you've got in common, what the common goal is, yeah? And very often, as I've said before, and I repeat it, go back to the script and make sure that, see if that helps you to understand what it is collectively you're trying to do.
It's so useful having experience in all the different areas. I've done stage management before. Again, stage management is absolutely critical. I think before anyone directs, they should actually have a stint doing stage management, because you have a kind of panoramic view of everything, and it's such a really rewarding experience. I've done some sound designing, not on a production, but training on that. Enough to know that it is I have a lot of respect for sound designers, is what I'll say. Light is an area that I haven't had experience. I've operated light and sound, which is all very straightforward. But yeah, I can't tell you that I've got up on ladders and I can start rigging up where lights and all of that. I haven't done any of that heavy lifting, but I have an interest in all of that. And I think as a director, the more you take interest in these areas, the more it will help you as well. And it's not because you want to, interfere, but it's good to have that general, just to see all the different elements, because you have input to add. Everyone does in the room. So, it's a two-way thing. There is some input that you can give, but I think ultimately let them feel that they have the freedom to come up with things and present to you, and you're not just dictating, I want you to do this and I want you to do that. Give them that freedom to say, look, how about this? What do you think?
There is this view that once you've got to the performance stage, the director just has to let go of it. And up to a point, that's true. But I still worry about things. And if something is going badly wrong, if I watch the first performance and something's going badly wrong, I will actually say to people, look, you can fix this. This is a way of easily fixing this, just in case people are not aware of something that isn't quite working, But you do have to let it go at some stage and just keep your fingers crossed. Yeah. It's like, I sometimes think, being a theatre director, it reminds me of, I'm a football nut, right? And the way that a football coach, a great football manager works, in the end, the players are going to deliver the football, not the manager or the coach. They're sitting there getting frustrated, but they're not playing. So you just have to let the players, the actors do it, and the production team, deliver it. Yeah. So you can have whatever creative vision you like, but you need the people who are going to perform, who are actually going to do it. That's in the end. That's what matters.
It's letting go of things. It's not holding on desperately to your, ideas and bits that you've already kind of committed to, but actually being prepared to throw things out, let things go, discard things, right up until the last. And I think that comes with experience. I think early stage directors find that really hard to do. But I think the more you can do that, that the confidence it takes to do that is really helpful. I mean, I do feel like I said at the beginning, the director's job is to enable. You're there to enable the actors and all the other creatives to do their thing. They're all coming with so many ideas and so many skills. The last thing you want to be doing is, forcing them into different shapes. You've just got to let them, give them space to find their form.
I mean, my main thing is I want to put on narratives that we don't often hear, something a bit different. I want to see different voices, different, I grew up on all classics and all of that, and there is a place for that, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying let's get away from all of that. I'm just saying let's have more of a balance. And for me, it's very important as a Black woman, if I'm directing a play, there are loads of plays that I want to direct that don't fit this criteria, but because no one else is directing these plays, I have to and I want to. And it has to be a play as a Black woman that has a Black female narrative that depicts the experience of someone that looks like me. So for me, that's first and foremost really important. There has to be strong female leads, strong Black female leads, and then, strong other leads, if you see what I mean, different to what I grew up on. Is it something that I think people would want to see? Will it have an impact? Will it shift the dial in terms of all these discussions? And again, it doesn't, when you say to someone, I want to do a play and it features mainly Black people, it doesn't have to, just because it features a lot of Black people, it doesn't have to be about race or oppression. There's more to our lives than that, don't get me wrong. Yes, if you're a Black person in the Western world, then these are things that will come up, right? But you don't have to have a play that's about suffering. I'm just saying a play that just celebrates someone that looks like you, and it could just be In Hiding is a good example, is a play about a mother that had an autistic son. That could be about anyone, anywhere in the world, right? But it was depicting that very specific experience. So that's all I'm saying. We just want, I want these voices to be heard, and it will show that at the end of the day, we are all human beings. There is only one race. I don't believe in different races. We are one race. It's not, we all have the same hopes and dreams. We all have things we struggle with. People paying their mortgages, people having affairs on their partners, all the usual. We are so interconnected, but you don't ever get to hear these other stories. It's always from that, from the white gaze, from that perspective. And there are all these stories we should be hearing. So that's how I select plays, based on that I want these voices that we don't hear to be heard, because they need to be, as Winston Pinnock said, because we're not hearing them, that is censorship. You are only feeding into a very small demographic. We're not hearing from everyone else. They don't get to be heard. You're censoring them. So I want to remove the censors. So that's that's what drives me. And there is a lot of material that plays into that is not depressing and not about people being killed or anything, like that fun, engaging texts but it's just something that I've happened to choose for myself. I'm not saying, every other Black woman or ethnic minority in theatre should only do plays like that. If I wanted to do an Acheborn play, I should be very, very well within my rights to do that. But I've just chosen not to, because there are 20 people who are going to stand up and do Acheborn, whereas how many people are standing up to put on Winston Pinnock? So, and I think Winston Pinnock should have the same footing as Acheborn, because she's a fantastic writer with great stories to tell.
When I came back to theatre after my little gap from it of 20 odd years or so, one of the reasons I came back to it is because there's something about the form of theatre which is actually very necessary, very valuable, given the kind of state of society, which, in my view, a lot of the time is very deeply divided, very fragmented, and quite, relationships are mediated in a very distant way through various, means of kind of digital communication or whatever. And the thing about theatre is that it goes against all that, and it challenges all that. There's something about the collective experience, the shared experience of theatre with real people in a real place, and it's present, it happens in the moment. And that's something that is perhaps unique about theatre. We also get it with music, but music can be part of theatre as well, So just that liveness, the shared quality of it seems to me to be something that helps, that is a contribution to people thinking about how can we change society to make it a more harmonious experience. I do think you have to be careful about thinking that theatre can change the world. I think what it can do, it can be an extension of a political movement, for example, like agitprop, and support it. And it can challenge the assumptions of the audience you've got, right? So that I like theatre that challenges, makes people wonder about the kind of received wisdom about the way society works, But quite often, the value of theatre is quite often that it's supporting or reinforcing a progressive idea, rather than trying to actually, agitate, So that's one thing about it. But I also think it's important to remember that there's something about theatre that is just joyful in itself. It's the word play. It's a very important word. There's something about theatre where it's just fun to do, it's playful. And I think it's always important to hang on to that.
One of the best things about this country is its theatre scene. And, we have such a rich, varied, busy theatre industry. It's taken lots and lots of knocks recently since COVID, and austerity and everything. I think it's, but it won't go away. You know, it's a resilient force, and I can't really imagine living anywhere else in the world that would kind of provide me with, you know, the context that I want as a practitioner, you know, that we get here. By definition, you can get it on its feet really quickly. You can make theatre quite quickly. You can get it out there quite quickly. It doesn't cost very much. I mean, I'm talking fringe theatre. So when you have world events like, let's say, Ukraine or something like that, you know, within a few months, shows are popping up that are trying to capture what these people are going through, and, you know, ideally opportunities for artists who are experiencing the crisis to express themselves. I think film can't really do that. It's too unwieldy, it's too slow, it's too expensive, it's too, you know, I think so the great thing about theatre is its adaptability and immediacy and liveness. I think the live element makes it impactful in a really visceral way that other art forms just can't be. I think especially if you are addressing some injustice that's going on right now in society, I think because it's live, because you're sharing the same oxygen as the performers, and you're you know, ideally quite close to them, you journey with them in a way, and I think you do come away feeling, yeah, I think impacted and hopefully inspired to go and do something.
So I really believe that with anything, with the mindset, if you open your mindset, if you have an open mindset as opposed to a closed one, I don't think there is a limit on your ability, on what you can learn. We are all learning all the time. There isn't a finite amount of knowledge you're going to have on anything. You can learn. Even a 4-year-old child can teach you something. And I think if you approach things in that way, that I don't know that yet, not, oh, I don't know that, then you can do anything you want. And I think acting is very much one of those things. I don't think you have to have this natural, raw ability to be able to act. I think you can acquire that skill just like anything else, just like directing, painting, whatever it is. Don't get me wrong, there are some people who do, you know, I know they're prodigies, people who have a knack, but when you think about these prodigies, when you think about people like Einstein, we hear about all his successes. I'm sure there are loads of things he tried and he failed at, he experimented at, and didn't go his way. Do you know what I mean? So it's you know, even people who are so-called geniuses, they've had to work really hard at that. It's not just something you roll out of bed, oh, I'm a genius, or I roll out of bed and I haven't practiced at all, but I'm I'm first-class tennis player. No, you've got to work hard. And I think that is most of it, over 90% of what goes into these things, it is the hard work and the determination. So just seeing that come to life, that, you know, you give people the tools and things they thought they couldn't do before, that, oh, I feel very uncomfortable about that, oh, I don't want to try that. And you see them really embracing that and realizing the extent, what they are capable of. It's just so rewarding. And it's incredible as a director to see that. And you're creating that in this room, just from a book, from words on a page, and you've turned it into this thing. And that is such a rewarding experience. But then directing can also be, as someone said to me, heartbreaking. Let's not go into that side. I'll start crying.